Red and blue lights flashed behind Michael Brown's car. He hadn't broken any laws, but the cops approached, hands on their holsters. "This your car?" One sneered, as the other reached for cuffs. Seconds later, Michael was face down on the pavement. Then, the radio crackled. "Let him go. Now!" But what happened next? That's where things get interesting. Detroit, late evening. A sleek black sedan rolls down a dimly lit street, neon lights flickering against its polished surface. Behind the wheel, Michael Brown keeps his posture composed, his hands relaxed but deliberate. His tailored suit, the pristine leather of his briefcase, everything about him speaks of control, of authority. But he knows that none of it will matter in about 10 seconds. The flash of red and blue in his mirrors is no surprise. Michael sighs, signaling and pulling over smoothly. The ritual is familiar, rehearsed. Keep hands visible. Stay calm. Speak carefully. His eyes flick to the rearview mirror as two officers step out, Jackson and Doyle. Their movements are tense, practiced, hands hovering a little too close to their weapons. Jackson reaches the driver's side first, his stance stiff with unearned hostility. License and registration. No greeting, no explanation, just the immediate assumption of guilt. Michael nods, moving slowly, methodically. "Of course, officer. May I ask why I was stopped?" Doyle, the shorter of the two, lets out a sharp laugh. "Suspicious vehicle. Doesn't seem like a car someone like you should be driving." Michael stills for a fraction of a second. He's heard it before, in different variations, from different mouths, all carrying the same message. But he keeps his face neutral, forces his pulse to remain steady. He retrieves his ID and registration, handing them over. Jackson glances at the name on the license. His expression shifts, barely, but enough. "Michael Brown?" He lifts an eyebrow, tilting the card slightly, as if the angle might reveal a forgery. "You sure this isn't stolen?" Michael meets his gaze, but doesn't engage. He just waits. Jackson clicks his tongue and nods toward Doyle. "Run it." Doyle steps back toward the patrol car, radioing something in. Michael remains still, breathing even, though the air around them is charged, thick with unspoken tension. Jackson doesn't like the silence. "Step out of the vehicle." Michael tilts his head slightly. "Is there a reason for—" "Out! Now!" The demand is sharp, immediate. Jackson doesn't wait for compliance. He yanks the door open, grabbing Michael's wrist hard. Michael steps out, movements careful, hands visible, shoulders squared. His pulse ticks upward, but his face remains unreadable. The moment stretches, electric. Doyle, still by the squad car, stiffens as something crackles over the radio. He turns back toward Jackson, expression tight, eyes darting between him and Michael. He leans in, voice hushed. "Sir, we have a problem." Jackson's grip slackens. A flicker of hesitation, of realization. The shift is subtle, but Michael sees it, and he knows. Something just changed. Jackson's face drains of color as his gaze flickers between the ID in his hand and the man standing before him. He's gripping control by its last fraying thread, but the weight of the moment presses down fast, relentless. "What did you say your job was?" His voice isn't as sharp now. There's a waver beneath the surface. Michael straightens his cuffs, his movements precise, deliberate. He doesn't blink. "I didn't." A pause, a heartbeat. Then, "But since you're curious, I'm a federal inspector. For your precinct." Silence. Thick. Suffocating. Final. Doyle stiffens. His Adam's apple bobs as he swallows hard. Your internal affairs?" Michael tilts his head slightly. "That's right. The impact lands like a gunshot. Jackson's fingers twitch at his side, his authority crumbling beneath his own weight. The same power he's so used to wielding now feels like a noose tightening around his own neck. But pride is stubborn. Fear is worse. He latches onto whatever control he thinks he has left. "Well, sir," he starts, clearing his throat, trying to sound steady. "We were just doing our job." Michael steps forward. Just enough. Just close enough. His voice doesn't rise. It doesn't need to. Cold steel cuts deeper than hot rage. "Your job?" He gestures toward his car. "Racial profiling? Harassment? I was driving under the speed limit. You pulled me over because of what? The color of my skin?" Doyle shifts uncomfortably. He looks anywhere but at Michael. Michael doesn't let him finish. "Save it." His tone is sharp. "I'm filing a full report first thing in the morning." The words land like a verdict. Doyle's shoulders tighten. Jackson finally registers the full gravity of this moment. This isn't just a bad stop. This is a career-ending mistake. Jackson exhales, steadying himself. A last, desperate attempt at damage control. "Look, sir, maybe we can handle this." Michael's laugh is sharp, cold, cutting. It isn't amusement. It's a knife, twisting. "Handle it?" His eyes narrow. "Like you were about to handle me, frisk me, cuff me, humiliate me?" A beat. Then, quieter, deadlier. "Or worse." The words hang, heavy and damning. Jackson flinches. Michael doesn't break eye contact. "No." The finality in his voice slams the door shut. "You're going to answer for this." Jackson's mask of control shatters. The power dynamic flips, and he feels it. Michael sees it. A flicker of fear. Real. Undeniable. Doyle tries again, desperate for an out. Michael shakes his head. "We're done here." And just like that, the roles are reversed. Morning light filters through the high windows of the precinct, but inside, the air feels heavy. Michael Brown strides through the station, his presence cutting through the usual morning routine. Officers glance up as he passes, some offering brief, stiff nods, others looking away too quickly. The whispers have already started. Michael hears them. He doesn't react. He's not here to make friends. Past the desks, past the murmurs, past the unease. He steps into the captain's office without knocking. A thick file drops onto the desk with a dull thud. Captain Reynolds, a veteran with weathered skin and eyes that have seen too much, looks up from his coffee. He doesn't ask what's in the folder. He already knows. Michael keeps his stance firm. "I want them investigated, thoroughly." Reynolds doesn't touch the file at first, doesn't flip through it like it's just another report. Instead, he studies Michael, gauging the storm behind his eyes. Then, finally, he exhales and pulls the file toward him. As he scans the first few pages, his expression shifts, his usual stoic detachment giving way to something darker. "Damn it!" The curse is muttered under his breath, but the weight behind it is unmistakable. Michael folds his arms. He's seen that reaction before. Seen men like Reynolds realize they've got a mess too big to sweep under the rug. "I don't care if they've been here for years," Michael says, voice unwavering. "I don't care who they know. We clean this up, or the DOJ will do it for us." Reynolds leans back in his chair, rubbing a hand over his face. He's not a corrupt man, but he is a tired one. Michael doesn't blink. "Which one is it, Captain?" Reynolds studies him. There's no arrogance in Michael's stance, no ego, just resolve. Finally, Reynolds exhales through his nose, setting the file down. "You know this won't be easy, Brown." Michael leans in slightly. Nothing about being black in this badge ever is. Another silence. This one deeper, heavier. Reynolds holds his gaze, then nods once. A small movement, but enough. All right. His voice is resigned, but there's steel beneath it. Let's do this. Michael straightens. He's seen empty promises before. This isn't one of them. He turns and walks out. The station is about to learn what real accountability looks like. Weeks pass. Jackson and Doyle face hearings, testimonies, evidence stacked against them. Other officers start speaking out. The department changes, not overnight, but enough for cracks to form in the foundation of silence. One evening, as Michael walks out of the precinct, a young black officer catches up to him. "Inspector Brown?" He hesitates, then says, "Just wanted to say, what you did? It mattered." Michael studies him, then nods. "It always does. Keep your head up." As he walks to his car, he sees his reflection in the side mirror, calm, unwavering. He starts the engine, pulling away from the station he was once stopped by. This time, no flashing lights follow. Justice doesn't come easy, but it comes.